All right, welcome everybody to another hybrid version of school. Um, we're going to go over more of Chapter 6 and actually into Chapter 7. We're just looking at the different roles of the presidents. Uh, read about this a little bit. We know that the president plays a lot of different roles. He's the head of the military, but he's also the chief of state. Um, there's a lot of things that the president does. So we're going to go ahead and kind of dive into that here. So roles of the president, again, it's chapter 6 and as well as chapter 7. Um, the official duties of the president, it is laid out somewhat in the Constitution in Article 2. We know that he is the head of the executive branch, while Congress is led by um, 435 members in the House and 100 members in the Senate. Uh, you know, we're looking at the president is the one single head of the entire executive branch. You went over his cabinet. You know that he has people that are his official advisors, but really, it all comes down to the president of the United States is the head of the executive branch. Um, it's also the president's job to set the goals for the nation. He's expected to, I say he, the president is expected to work with Congress. This is not always an easy thing. We find that even when it's well, we saw with President Trump and we've seen it with President Obama when it's a president and their political party runs all of Congress, it's not always easy to get things done. It's definitely not easy to get things done when you have, say, a president that's a Republican and a Congress that's controlled by Democrats, or vice versa. But the president is expected to work with Congress. The president is supposed to set the goals for the nation. He does this by drafting a budget and then working with Congress to get it passed. The president is also the head of the military. Term for that we give is commander in chief. He has advisors that are military advisors. However, the Constitution was set up so that the president, a civilian, not a military person, a civilian would be the head of the military. Um, and the president has advisors, again, that are generals or admirals. He has his joint chiefs of staff. But then there are also civilian advisors to the president as well that advise him on military policy. Ultimately, it is the president's final decision. The final decision on attacking or something like that, that falls on the president. The president himself cannot declare war. That is left up to Congress. However, we've kind of gotten around that in the last half a century because we haven't actually declared war since World War II. You have the Korean War that came after that, the Vietnam War. We call them wars, but those are not truly wars because we didn't actually declare war. The president made the decision to go in there, and then after that, we've seen in more recent times with wars in Afghanistan, Iraq, things like that. It's the president's decision to go in there, attack, do whatever. We just got to make sure that Congress is updated as needed. All right. The president is also the official United States ambassador. Um, he attends state functions. He also will host state functions. So what this means is, if we're going to have somebody, foreign dignitary, say the Queen of England, say she's going to come to the United States, the president, it's his duty um, to host her at the White House and put on a big dinner and do all that stuff to be an ambassador. Same thing when it comes to summit meetings. I don't even know what they're at now. It used to be the G8 summit. I think now it's up to the G20 summit. Basically, they get the big, powerful countries, get them together, and they're going to meet and discuss stuff. The president is our official representative there. going to foreign funerals. I've got a picture later on here of the president attending the Pope's funeral, Pope John Paul II, when I'm trying to think, it was Nelson Mandela, when he passed away. Many world leaders were there. President Obama went there and was, when he was president, and he was the official U.S. representative there. Other times, the president might send someone from the State Department or the vice president, but the president is our official U.S. ambassador. Also, the president is responsible for signing treaties with another country. However, the Senate has to ratify that. We saw that with the Treaty of Versailles, where Woodrow Wilson signed the treaty. He was actually influential in drafting the treaty. However, the Senate didn't actually sign it, but he was still acting as the official ambassador there because he was working to make that treaty a real thing. Okay, so when it comes to creating the office of the president, we've seen a lot different videos and things like that where we know that there really wasn't a lot laid out in the Constitution about what the president should be. Founding fathers knew they didn't want a king, so they didn't want someone that was going to be a tyrant. They want somebody with some limited powers, but they also knew that the president was going to have to be a powerful person. So that's why they limit the powers in the Constitution, and we've just left a lot of it up to tradition. When it comes to the actual term, as in how long the president is going to serve, they are elected to a 4-year term, and they have to be reelected to stay in office. So it just in this most recent election, Donald Trump was president, has been the president for almost 4 years, and he was not reelected. So he has a 4-year term, and now it's going to be President-elect Biden. Before that, President Obama was elected to a 4-year term, ran for office again, was reelected. So he had 2 terms. But either way, it's a 4-year term. Both the president and the vice president have to be reelected to stay in office. And that's been the way it was since the 22nd Amendment. Because before the 22nd Amendment, the president could serve as many terms as he wanted. And we had Franklin D. Roosevelt on your screen here. He actually was elected 4 different times in a row. He did not serve 16 years. He died pretty quickly into his 4th term, but he was elected 4 times in a row. And that really kind of made people, even though, he was pretty popular amongst the people, it made people just kind of take pause and think, do we really want somebody elected that many times? Because you had people that would have been voting for him that they never knew their entire life. They didn't know another president. So now president can only serve 2 terms for a maximum of 10 years. Okay, so you could finish out, say, 2 years of somebody else's term. So the only one this would have applied to would have been Lyndon Johnson. President Kennedy was assassinated. Lyndon Johnson took over for 2 years, got reelected himself. Okay, so served 4 years. That was 6 years total. He chose not to run again. Had he run again, had he won, he would have served out 2 years of Kennedy's term and then 2 terms of his own for a maximum of 10 years. So that's in there just as, kind of one of those weird things. It's probably never going to happen, but I guess you never really know. All right, so just like with Congress, when it comes to separation of powers, we do have a check and balance system when it comes to the president. Okay. The president cannot make any law. Okay. The president, he does not have the power to make laws. There's executive orders, which we'll talk about later, but the president cannot make a law. He can only work to carry out laws made by Congress. Okay, so that's one way that there's a check and balance system. Um, we're going to see a lot. He has to go to Congress. He has a lot of power, but if he wants to take that power further, he has to go to Congress. So when I talk about the executive orders, the president can sign an executive order which has all of the power of a law. However, it only works as long as he is in power. Okay. So as long as he is the president, that executive order stays. The new president comes in and they can sign new executive orders that either do something different or undoes what the previous president had done. Um, so it's not a law that just stays. We mentioned earlier that um, the president has a lot of leeway with the military. He is the uh, commander in chief. However, he cannot wage war. He cannot choose to go to war. He needs Congress's approval on that. Um, like I said, we haven't actually declared war since World War II. However, if we got into a major entanglement um, and Congress didn't approve of it, one thing Congress can always do is they could, if they didn't agree with the president, and this would have to be a major thing, but if they didn't approve, then they could simply cut funding and then there wouldn't be any money to carry out what the president wants. So that would be an extreme thing, but if there was like a major disagreement where the president wanted to go and invade and attack, and you've got the majority of Congress saying, no, we don't approve of this, they could withhold money. So there is always that. So that kind of keeps us from having a military dictator in power. Major appointments to the Supreme Court, to his cabinet. The president gets to nominate somebody. However, it's up to Congress, specifically the Senate, to confirm those appointments. Okay, and something that's definitely been in the news lately, when you have serious wrongdoing, the Constitution refers to it as high crimes and misdemeanors. So something pretty serious. President breaks the law, that could lead to impeachment. On the screen here, I've got Andrew Johnson and Bill Clinton. They are two presidents that have been impeached. However, President Trump, as we know, has been impeached not only once but now twice, just in the last year. But impeachment is a formal accusation of wrongdoing. House of Representatives votes on impeachment, and then it would be up to the Senate to confirm, or for the Senate to try that impeachment and remove him from office. No president has actually been removed from office due to impeachment. Okay, so the qualifications to be president: you have to be 35 years old, you have to have lived in the United States for 14 years, and you have to be a natural born citizen. As great as the founding fathers are, and as great as the Constitution is, this term here of being a natural born citizen is one of those things they put in there, and then didn't really clarify too much. We know what a naturalized citizen is, and that's somebody that is an immigrant but has gone through the process of becoming a citizen. But that's definitely not what they're talking about here. A natural born citizen, does that mean that you have to be born in the United States? Well, there's people that are citizens that were technically born somewhere else. Recently, the courts have ruled, this goes back to 2016 or 2015, actually, when Ted Cruz was running for the Republican primary. He was actually born in Canada, an American citizen, but born in Canada. The courts ruled that he meets the qualification of being a natural born citizen. That hasn't been challenged to the Supreme Court yet. Don't know if it will, but yeah, you do have to be an American citizen from birth. You can't just become one through the naturalization process. All right, let's talk about the president's salary. This is the part of class where I would say, hey, how much do you think the president makes? And, we know Donald Trump, he's a billionaire. He has actually taken a pretty major pay cut to be president. Um, Everybody thinks, the president, oh yeah, the president has to make a lot of money. Actually, we're going to see the salary here, and I think everybody in the class would agree that, hey, I would take the salary, but it's probably not as high as what you would think. Going back to 2001, because that was the last time that it was actually updated, um, salary was $400,000. Today, it's a little bit more, but all they've done is just added for inflation. But the base salary has stayed the same, and then it's just been increased. I want to say 3% every year since 2001. So we're talking 20 years ago, but still, it's not a whole lot more than $400,000. You look at this and think, well, the president should make a lot more money than that. Baseball players and football and basketball players and all these guys make, millions of dollars every year. But the idea kind of goes back to, we don't want somebody to be the president or run for any office because of the money. We want them to have that kind of that civic duty to be able to be what's driving them. On top of that $400,000, the president also has a $50,000 expense budget, which basically it's just the expense of, hey, you're the president and you got to be able to do things, live, sort of stuff like that. So this could be, food and clothing and, a lot of stuff like that. The president gets $100,000 on travel. This is actually a little bit of it's a little different because, the president, if he's going to go somewhere and he's going to, say he's going to fly to St. Louis and he's going to be talking about something that has to do with Missouri. I don't know what it would be. That would be an official trip. That doesn't come out of his travel budget. But if he's going to bring his family, and maybe they're going to take another day and go do something else, that would come out of the $100,000 travel budget. So if it's directly related to him being the president, doing his job, that's different than if he or his family is just going to go visit someplace. The other part here, he gets $19,000 on entertainment. Seems like a lot, but you have to remember the president can't just go to a movie theater. So they actually have a movie theater at the White House that they bring films into for him, if that's what he wants to do. But I mean, it's not, it's not the president doesn't have the ability to just go do whatever he wants, especially, if he has a family. You would expect you do need some type of entertainment. The Obamas, they went to Africa. It was an official visit, but people threw a fit because they were going to go on this safari and it was going to cost all this money. Well, what people didn't realize is that, people do go on a safari and they go look at animals and stuff, but it takes a lot more for the president of the United States and his family to be able to do that because there's so much extra security and all that has to go into it. That came out of their entertainment budget. That came out of their, the budget that they're allowed. So it wasn't like, yes, it was taxpayer money, but it's also included in his salary. So all these things are per year, by the way. All right, so we know that the roles of the president are not really all that defined in the Constitution. A lot of it, we just went back to the example that George Washington set. And we just said, well, this is what Washington did. He was a pretty good president, so we're going to follow him. So Washington did a great job by setting an example. I don't know that we could have had a better example when it came to setting the tone for the office of the president. And Washington definitely did that. And he had the respect of so many other people that even people that didn't necessarily agree with him still followed the tradition that he set. And so that's why we have so many of those first presidents. They keep going back to what Washington did, and that sort of defined the roles of the president. One of the big things was Washington served 2 terms and said that was enough, and then he basically retired. We had presidents that came after that probably could have served more than 2 terms, but sort of out of respect for Washington and the example that he set, they also said, well, 2 terms is enough. So, Washington definitely set that tone. And again, many of these roles that we know of today are basically just traditional ones that were set by George Washington. We're going to go ahead and stop here. The next set of notes, it continues on with this. It'll be part 3, and we'll get into the different roles that the president has and go into those in a little bit more detail. So look for that. Tomorrow, you're probably going to, it'll either be tomorrow or Thursday. Tomorrow, I think you're going to have an assignment, so we'll probably hold off and we'll continue with notes on Thursday. So go ahead, get these. Make sure you're getting these in a Google Doc, and I guess we'll meet again on Thursday.